The pathology of Martha Jenkins wasn't just that she wanted grandchildren. It was that she viewed the female body as a manufacturing plant, and she was the ruthless foreman. She was obsessed with legacy, willing to incinerate my life and the life of my sister Chloe to ensure she had a brood of babies to parade around. My mother is the most reproductive obsessed narcissist I have ever encountered. The conditioning began when I was 8. Martha made Chloe and me wear grotesque pregnancy simulation suits, canvas sacks filled with 20 pounds of coarse sand, strapped to our abdomens with duct tape. If we complained about the pain, Martha would simply add more weight. Real mothers don't whine, Eleanor. Real mothers endure. She even forced us to practice breastfeeding with weighted dolls, containing sensors that shrieked if not held at the exact angle she demanded. While I spent every session plotting my escape, Chloe embraced it. Adopted by Martha at age 4, Chloe seemed to feel she owed our mother a debt that could never be repaid. By 16, she was begging Martha to let her be a practice surrogate. When Chloe turned 18, Martha threw her a massive party. It wasn't for graduating high school, but for signing her first surrogacy contract. I sat in the corner feeling like I was witnessing a livestock auction as church members inspected Chloe's hips. Within 3 years, Chloe had carried 3 babies for wealthy couples. Each time she returned empty-handed and bleeding, Martha paraded her around like a prize pony. Meanwhile, I clawed my way through law school and a doctorate in psychology, specializing in reproductive coercion. To Martha, I was a failure. Such a waste of a perfectly good uterus, she would say. Watching Chloe deteriorate was the hardest part. By 22, she looked ghost-like, her hips ground to dust, her hair falling out. When I tried to intervene, Chloe just looked at me with fanaticism in her eyes. My body is a vessel for miracles, Eleanor. I played along to survive, feigning interest in pregnancy while building a life as a forensic psychologist in Seattle. By 28, I felt safe, so when Martha invited me to Chloe's celebration dinner, I let my guard down. I was dead wrong. It wasn't a party, it was an ambush. "Sweetie, you're not getting any younger," Martha announced as soon as the door locked behind me. Chloe sat beside her, pregnant with number 5. Martha pulled a syringe from her purse. Just a little boost to get those eggs flowing. I jumped back, but Chloe lunged, pinning my arms. "Please, Al, just try it," she pleaded. "I found the perfect couple for your first baby." "Let go of me," I screamed, but Martha advanced. "Stop fighting, Eleanor. You'll thank me later." I saw a cooler labeled Serenity Oak Haven Clinic. As Martha plunged the needle into my thigh, the liquid burned like acid. My vision blurred, and through the haze I heard Martha on the phone. "Yes, Dr. Thorne."
"She'll be ready for harvest in 2 weeks." Harvest. I woke up in the ICU, pain crushing my abdomen. I had ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, OHSS, fluid buildup crushing my lungs. My mother stood over me. "We only brought you here to save your womb," she said coldly. "Weak constitution, just like your father." I pressed the call button. Nurse Anya Sharma rushed in, took one look at my vitals and my mother's predatory stance, and ordered Martha to leave. As soon as the door shut, I broke down. I told Anya everything, the sandbags, the coercion, the assault. "I'm calling security," she whispered. 20 minutes later, Detective Liam Carter arrived. "Miss Vance, this constitutes felony assault," he said. "The drugs in your system are highly regulated." Through the window, I saw Martha arguing with security, mouthing "ungrateful bitch." Detective Carter checked my buzzing phone. "Texts from Chloe," he said grimly. "Mom was helping you. You're destroying our family." He looked up. "There's a pattern of forced treatments linked to Serenity Oak Haven Clinic. Your mother, she recruits?" I whispered, "She calls herself a consultant." A hospital social worker entered, looking terrified of Martha. A thought pierced my fog of pain. I grabbed my phone and checked the patient portal. My medical power of attorney had been changed 3 months ago. "This isn't my signature," I told Carter, showing him the forgery. "She gave consent for the treatment that put me in here." Before Carter could respond, a man in an expensive suit strode in. "I'm representing Martha Jenkins and Dr. Thorne," he announced smoothly. "Miss Vance is clearly suffering from hormone-induced psychosis. Her mother acted under a valid power of attorney." "I'm not psychotic," I protested weakly. "I was assaulted." "The hormones suggest otherwise," the lawyer countered. Suddenly, Chloe appeared in the doorway, wailing and surrounded by crying children. "Aunt Eleanor needs help, she screamed, performing for the room. She begged us for the baby. The trap my mother had built tried to snap shut one last time. But this time, I wasn't the scared 8-year-old in a sandbag suit. I was a forensic psychologist, and I was looking at a crime scene.
The cacophony of Chloe's performance reverberated off the sterile walls of the ER. It was a masterclass in histrionics. Hospital security officers pushed through the crowd, trying to corral the wailing woman. Chloe, my sister, bounced her youngest child on her hip while dramatically rubbing her own pregnant belly, casting fearful glances in my direction. "Please, just help her," Chloe sobbed, pitching her voice for the gathering nurses. "She's been spiraling for months." I retreated to the edge of the gurney, heart hammering. I snatched my phone and dialed the senior partner at my firm. I needed a shark, not a psychologist. The receptionist answered. "Law offices." "Maria, it's Eleanor. I need to speak to—" "Oh, Miss Vance," Maria interrupted, her tone softening into pity. "Your mother called earlier. She explained everything about your situation. We're handling your caseload while you recover." Ice water flooded my veins. "What did she say?" "Your mother was very specific about the severity of the psychotic break. We've been instructed not to agitate you further." The line went dead. I stared at the black screen in disbelief. Through the observation window, I saw my mother, Martha, standing with the lawyer representing Dr. Thorne. She was handing him my keys, apartment, car. She counted off points on her fingers, reciting my schedule. They were dismantling my life, appointment by appointment. Suddenly, Gabriel burst through the ward doors, his press badge swinging. "Gabriel!" I shouted, though the soundproof glass silenced me. Chloe intercepted him like a viper. She blocked his path, gesturing wildly toward me, then tapped her temple, the universal sign for "she's lost her mind." She shoved her smartphone screen under his nose. Gabriel's face went slack as a shadow of doubt crossed his features. Nurse Anya Sharma entered my room carrying a bag labeled "Patient Belongings." "I found these in your jacket pocket," she whispered, checking the door. She pulled out brochures for a Serenity Oak Haven clinic and a consent form for an emergency egg retrieval dating back to last week. The signature was a perfect forgery. They planted them, I realized, to make it look like I was seeking treatment. The hospital administrator appeared in the doorway, a severe woman with a clipboard. "Given the family's valid concerns, we believe it is in Eleanor's best interest to transfer her to the psychiatric ward for a 72-hour evaluation." Through the glass, Martha smiled, a tight expression of victory. Detective Liam Carter stepped out from the corner. "She is a victim of assault," he rumbled. "She isn't going anywhere without a court order." "We are simply following protocol for patients exhibiting delusions," the administrator replied smoothly. My phone buzzed. It was Professor Reed, my mentor. Hope sparked in my chest. "Professor, thank God, I need—"
"Eleanor?" Evelyn's voice was strained. "I just got off the phone with Martha. She told me you've been fixating on having a baby for years, that it's affecting your work, that you attacked her because you were confused." I stopped breathing. My mother wasn't just trapping me. She was erasing me. Every avenue of my credibility was being systematically poisoned. "The evaluation," I said suddenly. "I'll do it. I am a forensic psychologist. I will prove I am competent, and then I will sue this hospital." The opposing lawyer stepped in, smiling. "Excellent. Dr. Margaret Whitfield has agreed to perform the evaluation." The name hit me like a physical blow. Dr. Whitfield had been in my mother's book club for 15 years. It was a setup, a closed loop. Nurse Anya squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens, don't sign anything else," she breathed. "And check your phone's location settings. Someone has been tracking you for months." Outside, Chloe was showing Gabriel her phone again. I caught a glimpse of the screen. An old text thread from 2 years ago, shortly after Dad died. In a moment of grief, I had texted Gabriel about fearing loneliness and regretting not starting a family. Chloe was framing a moment of weakness as a deep-seated obsession. Gabriel wasn't looking at a crime scene anymore. He was looking at his broken, desperate sister. The evaluation was scheduled for 8 a.m. Sleep was impossible. Around 3 a.m., I checked Instagram. Chloe had been documenting a fiction for months. Photos of me looking tired at family dinners were captioned, "Praying for my sister's fertility journey." A video of me playing with her daughter had a text overlay. "She'll be such a good mom when she finally heals and accepts reality." It was a complete digital fabrication. My work email pinged.
My mother had sent an email from my account to the entire firm and my client list. Subject: indefinite leave. I have been struggling privately with severe fertility issues, and the emotional toll has culminated in a breakdown. My family is helping me get treatment. The timestamp was 2:47 a.m. I tried to log in to retract it, but the password had been changed. The recovery address was now Martha's. She had locked me out of my professional identity. By 6 a.m., the hospital rumor mill had turned me from Dr. Vance into the crazy woman who attacked her mother. A breakfast tray arrived. I was starving, but when I sipped the orange juice, a sharp chemical bitterness hit my tongue. I spat it out immediately. After the soup, after the family dinners, they were trying to drug me to ensure I failed Dr. Whitfield's evaluation. Detective Carter arrived at 7:30 a.m., looking exhausted. He pulled a chair close, lowering his voice. I've been digging all night. Eleanor, your mother's name is everywhere. Serenity O'Caven. He opened a folder. She handles the intake paperwork personally. There's a recurring demographic: young women, runaways, girls with no support.
They sign up to be compassionate surrogates or donors. He slid a list of names toward me. 3 of the women on this list vanished 6 months after their intake dates. I looked at the bottom of the page where a familiar name was highlighted: Chloe Sterling. She recruits them, I whispered, the realization dawning with terrifying clarity. And Chloe isn't just the golden child. She's the bait. But here is the insidious problem, Liam, I rasped, my voice rough from the chemical aftertaste of the tainted soup. They all sign consent forms. They all pass psychological evaluations. On paper, everything looks legitimate. The system is designed to protect the clinic's liability, not the women's lives. Detective Liam Carter rubbed his jaw, the fluorescent lights deepening the shadows beneath his eyes. I know. Their lawyers are stonewalling my subpoena for the raw files. I need concrete evidence linking Thorne to the disappearances. But right now, Eleanor, I'm concerned about getting you through this evaluation. He checked his watch. They're bringing in a specialist. Dr. Whitfield arrived at 8 a.m., bringing a cloud of expensive floral perfume. She was exactly as I remembered, silver-haired, immaculately coiffed, with reading glasses on a pearl chain. Eleanor, dear, she said warmly, setting her briefcase down. Your mother has told me so much about your recent struggles. Liam stood up. I'm Detective Carter. I'll be observing this interview. Dr. Whitfield didn't flinch. I'm afraid this evaluation must be conducted privately. Police presence can exacerbate the persecution complex. I'm staying, Liam said, his voice hard as granite. Then I'll note in my report that the patient required police supervision, suggesting imminent violent tendencies. She countered smoothly. It guarantees a long-term commitment order. Your choice, detective. Liam looked at me, his jaw clenched. I nodded slightly. We both knew she'd already written her conclusion. Having Liam removed was a power play. It's okay, Liam. Go. After the door clicked shut, Dr. Whitfield opened her briefcase. Inside, I glimpsed forms that appeared already completed. The verdict was in before the trial had begun. Now then, she began, tapping a tablet. Let's talk about your relationship with motherhood. For the next hour, the room became a torture chamber of twisted logic. As a forensic psychologist, I watched her techniques with horror. Every question was a trap. When I explained choosing my career over children, she typed notes about rejection of feminine archetype. When I mentioned my work helping women escape reproductive coercion, she murmured about sublimated fertility envy. When I told her about the forced injection at the dinner table, she looked over her glasses. Do you often feel persecuted by nurturing figures, Eleanor? It's a fact. Check the toxicology report, I snapped. Your mother mentioned you've been playing with dolls recently, she said abruptly. She found them in your apartment, hidden behind the winter coats. She turned the tablet to face me. It was a photo of my closet floor. There, nestled behind my trench coat, were 3 dolls I had never seen, positioned artistically. It's common for women experiencing fertility grief to regress, Whitfield lectured. Those aren't mine, I said, my voice trembling with rage. Someone planted those. My mother has a spare key. Denial is also common, she replied, typing rapidly. Your mother told us about the vitamins, too. She injected me with Follistim against my will. She tried to give you a vitamin supplement. You became violent. She tilted her head sympathetically. The mind plays tricks under stress. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. I glanced at the screen. Withdrawal alert. $45,000. My savings. When I reached for it, Dr. Whitfield snatched the device. "Let's focus," she said, sliding the phone into her briefcase. "Tell me about your jealousy toward Daniela." "I am not jealous. I investigate trafficking rings," I shouted. "See?" She sat back, satisfied. Unstable affect, aggression. By the time she finished, she had painted a masterpiece of fiction, a woman consumed by barrenness, constructing a persecution fantasy to demonize those trying to help her. "I'm recommending a 72-hour hold for observation," she announced. "Psychiatric transport will be here shortly." "You can't do this," I hissed. "I know the statutes." "You've spent years studying law to compensate for your biological failures," she said, standing. "The hold begins immediately." After she left, I scrambled for the landline. Dead silence. The transport team arrived minutes later. 2 orderlies strapped me into a wheelchair. As they pushed me past the nurse's station, Nurse Anya Sharma looked down at her chart, terrified. She knew. Then I saw her. My mother stood at the end of the hallway, talking to Dr. Whitfield. She was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, the picture of a grieving parent. But as they wheeled me past, the mask slipped. Her eyes met mine with cold calculation, a predator watching a trap snap shut. The psychiatric ward was in a separate building. My new room was sterile, the walls padded, the window reinforced with wire mesh. "Clothes off," the intake nurse commanded. They took everything, giving me paper scrubs that smelled of bleach. "Dr. Whitfield's notes say you have a history of violent outbursts," the nurse said. "No visitors except immediate family. No phone calls." "That is illegal. I have the right to a lawyer." "I'll have to check with Dr. Thorne about that," she said dismissively. "Dr. Thorne?" My blood ran cold. "Dr. Adrian Thorne? He runs a fertility clinic. He is the consulting psychiatrist for your case. He stepped in as a favor to your mother." I was trapped in a bureaucratic maze designed to dismantle my life. My mother arrived that afternoon with a pink suitcase. "I brought you some comfortable clothes," she announced, breezing past security. She unpacked methodically on the sterile sheets. Maternity clothes, prenatal vitamins, then a leather-bound journal titled My Fertility Journey. The first 20 pages were already filled out in handwriting that looked terrifyingly like mine, detailing months of praying for a miracle.
"The retrieval is scheduled for next week," she said, shaking out a maternity dress. "Dr. Thorne is optimistic about your egg quality." "I am not consenting to any procedure," I said, shaking. "Of course not, dear. Not in your current state." She hooked the dress onto the bed rail. "That's why I've petitioned for temporary medical conservatorship." She pulled out a folder. "Your colleagues have written letters. They agreed your work looked like a personal obsession." She set a framed ultrasound photo, labeled Baby Vance, on the table. She was redecorating my cell into a nursery. "Daniela sends her love," Mom said, playing a video on her phone. Daniela lay in a hospital bed, looking pale and nervous. "Hi, Eleanor. Dr. Thorne is a miracle worker. Just trust him. Please, just sign the papers." Mother slipped the phone away and patted my cheek with a cold hand. "We're going to fix you, Eleanor," she whispered. "Whether you like it or not. And when you're ready, there's a wonderful couple waiting to give your babies all the love in the world, just like the ones I carry are getting. Don't fight this, Eleanor. Let Martha help you." On the screen, Chloe Sterling's face was slick with perspiration. The baby in her arms, someone else's purchase, started crying, a thin sound vibrating through the smartphone speaker. Chloe winced, shifting on the hospital bed, and a spasm of raw agony distorted her features. The camera shook slightly. Whoever was filming had noticed the crack in the facade. Abruptly, the video cut to black. "She's so brave," Martha said, tucking the phone into her tweed blazer. She smoothed the fabric reverently. "Her third surrogacy for Serenity Oakhaven, and she never complains, unlike some people who squander their God-given gifts." A commotion in the hallway interrupted her, raised voices and the heavy tread of security boots. Through the reinforced observation window, I watched with a sinking heart. Nurse Anya Sharma, the only person here who looked at me with human recognition, was being escorted out by guards, clutching a box of personal items. Martha followed my gaze, her expression beatific and terrifyingly calm. "Oh yes, Nurse Sharma was let go this morning. HIPAA violations. Sharing sensitive patient information. Such a shame." She sighed. She seemed like a nice girl, but rules are rules. The subtext was clear. Anyone who validated my sanity would be removed. After Martha left, leaving behind the scent of rosewater and antiseptic, I tried to sleep. The bed was too firm, and the room was perpetually bathed in the cold, blue-white glow of safety lights. The ward's acoustics were designed to unsettle. The ventilation hummed at a frequency that set my teeth on edge. Someone down the hall was weeping. The night nurse performed checks every hour, shining a high-lumen flashlight through the window, ensuring we were objects under surveillance rather than patients at rest. Around midnight, the pattern broke. A different nurse slipped into my room, the magnetic lock disengaging with a soft click. She was older than Anya, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "I don't have long," she whispered, barely audible over the HVAC. "But I knew your friend, Anya. She asked me to give you this." She pressed a scrap of folded paper into my palm. "A phone number," she hissed. "Call it when you can." "How?" I whispered. "Not from here. They monitor the ward lines. But when you get out," she looked at the door, terror radiating off her. "There are more of us than you think, Eleanor. Women who've seen what Dr. Thorne really does. We've just been too scared to speak up." She vanished like a phantom. I memorized the digits until they were burned into my cortex, then tore the paper into confetti and flushed it. "Evidence of conspiracy," Martha would call it. "Proof of paranoid persecutory delusions," Dr. Thorne would write. The next morning brought group therapy. 6 women in a circle sharing their struggles, the schedule claimed. In reality, it was a re-education camp. The therapist, a young man with soothing platitudes, encouraged us to explore our resistance to our natural roles. When my turn came, I remained silent. As a psychologist, I knew the game. Anything I said would be twisted for the competency hearing. "Eleanor is working through deep-seated fertility grief," the therapist explained for me. "Sometimes trauma manifests as a rejection of traditional femininity." A girl barely out of her teens, wrists wrapped in gauze, looked at me with sympathy. "I get it," she said. "I used to think I didn't want kids either. I thought my art was enough. But therapy helped me realize I was just scared of not being good enough. I wanted to scream that not wanting children was a valid choice, that I was here because I helped women escape this coercive control. But seeing the cameras blinking in the ceiling, I just nodded mechanically. Lunch was served in a common room with barred windows. I picked at the gray meat, paranoid about chemical sedatives. My table-mate, an older woman with hollow eyes, leaned over. "First time?" I nodded. "Word of advice," she murmured. "Agree with everything. The fastest way out is through compliance." She chuckled bitterly. "I've been here 6 times. I keep fighting my daughter about custody of my grandkids. But this time, I'm going to play along, tell them I understand boundaries, accept my role as a support system rather than a matriarch. Whatever gets me out, right?" That afternoon, I faced Dr. Adrian Thorne. His office was a masterclass in manipulation, walls covered with prints of serene mothers, interspersed with framed diplomas. "Your mother tells me you were asking about the retrieval procedure," Thorne began, leaning back in his expensive suit. "I wasn't," I say flatly. "It's natural to be curious. Many women find understanding the process helps alleviate anxiety." He slid a glossy brochure across the desk. "Blessed Beginnings, the Serenity O'Caven Promise. Our clinic has an excellent success rate. The couple Martha selected is lovely. He's a cardiologist, she's a Montessori teacher." "I am not donating my eggs," I said, gripping the chair. "Of course not," Thorne soothed, his voice like velvet over gravel. "You're donating the possibility of life. It's an act of supreme altruism." He made a note. "Eleanor, close your eyes. Imagine holding your biological child. Even if another woman carries them, they'll still be yours in the genetic way that matters to legacy." I kept my eyes open, staring at his credentials. All legitimate, board certified. The horror was in the legitimacy. "Resistance is normal," he continued, "but deep down you know Martha is right. You've spent years fighting your biology, drowning yourself in the darker side of human nature with your forensic work. What if you just let go?" Gabriel came during visiting hours. I saw him through the glass, my brother, disheveled, waving a legal document. But he was turned away. Family only, they told him. Instead, Martha arrived with Chloe. Chloe moved slowly, supporting her lower back. She looked exhausted, her pregnancy far advanced. Martha guided her into the visiting room like a prize heifer. "Aunt Eleanor is sick," Martha told the 26-year-old as if she were a toddler, "but she's getting better."
Chloe sank into a chair. She looked at me, eyes glazed. Perhaps exhaustion, perhaps sedatives. Martha says you're going to join the program soon, Chloe said, her voice lacking spark. It's a blessing, Eleanor, truly. That's right, Martha interjected, placing a possessive hand on Chloe's shoulder. Eleanor just needs help remembering how much she wants this. Martha pulled a weathered notebook from her purse, my childhood diary. Remember how you used to name your pretend babies? Martha asked. Emma, Sophia, little Gabriel Jr. That was a game. I was 7. No, Eleanor. She flipped to a page I didn't recognize. Look here. She pushed the diary toward me. The handwriting was erratic, undeniably similar to mine, yet the slant was wrong. I feel so empty, the entry read. I just want to be a mother. My career means nothing compared to creating life. I didn't write that, I said, voice trembling. See? Martha turned the book toward Chloe. She's always wanted this. The stress of her job just made her forget her true self. Chloe looked at the diary, then at me, confusion in her eyes. She was witnessing the rewriting of history, the gaslighting occurring in real time. She touched her swollen stomach, then looked at my flat one. After they left, I retreated to the bathroom, staring at my pale reflection. I wondered how many women here were labeled unstable simply for fighting the current. That evening, there was an incident. A new patient had been dragged in screaming about a pregnancy she didn't want. Security restrained her while nurses administered an injection. Through the crack in my door, I heard fragments. Religious parents, a botched escape, legal aid blocked. By morning, the transformation was terrifying. She sat in group therapy, calm and compliant, eyes dead. She talked about how she'd misunderstood her family's love. Sometimes we perceive care as control, the therapist said approvingly, but with medication, we can learn to accept support. I watched her hands tremble. She agreed with everything. They had chemically lobotomized her resistance, and everyone pretended it was a breakthrough. My own medication arrived with breakfast. Just to help with the anxiety, the nurse said with a saccharine smile. I recognized the benzodiazepines. I palmed the pills, feigning a swallow, and took a sip of water. Later, I'd flush them just like the phone number, but I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. Eventually, they'd switch to liquid suspension or injections. The conservatorship hearing was in 3 days. Dr. Thorne and Martha were ready, and I was running out of time. Dr. Thorne assured me it was merely a procedural formality, a bureaucratic box-ticking exercise that required neither my presence nor my worry. Martha will handle everything, Eleanor, he said, his smooth baritone vibrating with paternalistic condescension. You just focus on your wellness, on becoming whole. But I was a forensic psychologist. I knew exactly what that hearing meant. Once Martha Jenkins, my guardian, and the clinic's former administrator turned conservator, secured that legal status, my autonomy would be extinguished. She could consent to anything on my behalf: egg retrieval, hormone treatments, perhaps even forced implantation framed as therapeutic intervention for my alleged localized psychosis. That night, the silence of Serenity Oakhaven was heavy. I lay awake, my mind racing beneath the fog of the benzodiazepines I'd cheeked and flushed earlier. I wasn't planning a physical escape. Climbing a fence would only validate their diagnosis of hysteria. No, I needed a different strategy. I needed compliance. It had to be weaponized compliance. I had to become exactly what they wanted, a woman who had accepted her biological destiny and understood that Martha's suffocating control was actually love. One slip, one micro-expression of contempt, and I would be housed in this high-end prison indefinitely. If I could convince Dr. Thorne I'd had a breakthrough, if I could show the proper gratitude, maybe I could get released in time to appear at the hearing. To prove I was sane, I had to act deranged. To maintain my autonomy, I had to surrender it. Tomorrow, I promised the dark ceiling. Tomorrow, I start the show. I would cry in group therapy about my empty womb. I would thank Dr. Thorne. I would let Martha dress me in those grotesque maternity clothes. Every word would be ash in my mouth, but it was the only way out that didn't involve a locked operating room. 3 days. I had 3 days to convince a narcissist and a zealot that I was cured of the terrible affliction of childlessness. The next morning, I woke with cold determination. During group therapy held in the sun-drenched atrium, I raised my hand. I think I understand now, I said, pitching my voice to tremble. All these years I've been running. My career, my independence, it was all just fear. The therapist leaned forward eagerly. I fabricated a dream about holding a baby, using sensory language I knew would trigger their empathy. The other women nodded with teary-eyed validation.
When Dr. Thorne arrived for our individual session, I was ready. I sat on the edge of the velvet sofa, twisting my hands in contrition. I want to apologize, Adrian. I dropped his title to feign intimacy. You were right. I've been using forensic psychology as a shield to avoid facing my own fertility grief. Thorne practically illuminated. His ego was the key. This is wonderful progress, Eleanor. Truly profound.
For the next hour, I fed him the narrative he craved. I told him my work with the Ethical Medical Practices Review Board was really about controlling what I couldn't have. By the end, he was typing furiously. "I think we should tell Martha," he said. "She'll be so relieved." When Martha arrived, I was wearing one of the loose pastel dresses she had packed. I stood by the window, rubbing my flat stomach like a vessel. "Oh, Ellie," Martha said, her voice thick with performative emotion. "You look so natural." I let her hug me, fighting the urge to shove her away. "I'm sorry I fought you, Martha," I whispered. "You and the clinic, you saved me." She pulled back, scanning my face for cracks. Then she smiled, a terrifying expression of victory. The board needs to hear this. I spent the rest of the day in a fugue state of performance. I asked Martha about egg retrieval, feigning excitement. Dr. Thorne was so impressed he mentioned expediting my release. "If you continue showing this level of insight, Eleanor, we might not need the full 72-hour hold." The next morning brought a variable I hadn't accounted for: Gabriel. My brother arrived during visiting hours. He looked exhausted, skeptical of the facility. "Martha said you're doing better," he said carefully. "She said you've had a shift." I wanted to scream the truth, but I spotted the camera blinking in the corner. Thorne was watching. Instead, I reached for Gabriel's hand. "I've been so confused, Gabe," I said, making my voice airy. "But Dr. Thorne is helping me understand what I really want." I squeezed his hand. 3 sharp, distinct pulses. SOS. Our childhood signal. His eyes widened slightly, a flicker of recognition passing through the confusion. "Maybe when you get out, we can talk about the future," he said, improvising. "I'd like that," I replied, squeezing his hand 3 times again. "I just want to focus on family now." After he left, I felt a spark of adrenaline. He hadn't bought the act. He knew. That afternoon, I leveraged my status as the model patient to get computer access. Nurse Anya granted me 15 minutes to research prenatal nutrition. I sat at the terminal, heart hammering. I quickly opened an incognito window and logged into my personal email. I fired off a message to a colleague at the Legal Aid Society. Held against will. Competency hearing imminent. Need representation immediately. Case number unknown. Then I checked my bank accounts. Empty. A transfer of $40,000 had been authorized by M. Jenkins, conservator pending. Finding good information? I jumped. Martha was behind me. I quickly alt-tabbed back to the fertility clinic website. "Just learning about the retrieval process," I lied. She patted my shoulder. "It is a miracle, Ellie." As she moved to speak with a nurse, I navigated to the Seattle Superior Court website. I searched my name. In re conservatorship of Eleanor Vance. Petitioner, Martha Jenkins. The hearing was scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. I memorized the case number and the courtroom. Then I cleared the browser history. If I could get released in the morning, I might make it to court. That evening, Dr. Thorne called an emergency session. My stomach dropped. "Martha told me you've been researching specific protocols," Thorne said. "I'm so pleased with your progress that I'm recommending immediate release." I blinked. "Really?" "You'll need outpatient therapy," he added, "but Martha has already made an appointment at the Blessed Beginnings Clinic for tomorrow afternoon to start the preliminary screenings." My blood ran cold. Tomorrow afternoon, the same time as the conservatorship hearing. It was a setup. They were releasing me to drive me straight to another secure facility, ensuring I missed court and Martha won by default. "That's wonderful," I lied. I was released the next morning at 9 a.m. Martha was waiting by her sedan with lilies and prenatal vitamins. "Martha, I need to stop by my apartment first," I said as we got into the car. "I need to change clothes, shower in my own bathroom, feel normal again before the appointment." Her smile faltered. "Oh, but we have a schedule, Ellie. Dr. Thorne was very specific." "Please," I said, channeling soft manipulation. "I want to look my best when we go to Blessed Beginnings. This is the start of my new life. I want it to be perfect."
Vanity and propriety. She understood those. Fine, she sighed. But we can't be long. She drove me to my loft in downtown Seattle. When we arrived, she insisted on coming inside. I'll just make some tea while you change, she said, claiming my space with a proprietary air. While she bustled around my kitchen, I grabbed my phone from the counter. Dead battery. I locked myself in the bathroom and turned on the shower to mask the sound. I plugged the phone in, praying for a quick charge. As soon as the screen lit up, I dialed the number of the colleague I'd emailed. Pick up, I hissed, staring at my gaunt reflection in the mirror. Please, pick up.
Gabriel, I got your message. The hearing is at 2 p.m. No, wait, listen, I whispered, the steam from the shower turning my reflection into a ghostly smear. I can't make it on my own. Mother will have me at Serenity Oakhaven by then. You have to file an emergency motion. Without you, it's harder, but I have the evidence. I paused, listening to the silence of the apartment. Check my secure cloud drive. Password Veritas. Folder Thorne. Everything is there. Falsified psych evaluations, financial transfers to Dr. Thorne, unauthorized hormone injections. A sharp rap on the door made me jump. Eleanor, everything okay? You've been in there a while. Just nervous, I called back, smoothing my voice into a forensic psychologist's practiced calm. Drying off now. I looked at the phone. Gabriel, please, get to the courthouse. Bring the evergreen legal aid lawyer. I'm going to try to run, but if I can't, you have to be my voice. I hid the phone and emerged, wrapped in a towel. I stopped dead. Mother was at my bookshelf, pulling down my DSM-5 and criminal behavior texts, stacking them like refuse. In their place, she shelved glossy hardbacks. The Miracle of Motherhood, Blessed Wombs. Much better, she said. Feng Shui is important for conception, Eleanor. All this dark reading poisons the womb. Those are my reference books, I said tightly. You won't need them where you're going. She unzipped a garment bag to reveal a flowing white linen dress, something a cult member might wear to a solstice. It was designed to erase the woman who analyzed crime scenes and replace her with a compliant vessel. Dr. Thorne insists on an atmosphere of purity. I put it on. I had to play the part. We arrived at the Serenity Oakhaven Clinic at 1:30 p.m. It looked like a 5-star resort tucked into the evergreen dense suburbs. The waiting room was populated by desperate couples and young women with dissociated eyes, the same look I'd seen in victims during my years of advocacy. A nurse named Anya approached. Mrs. Vance, wonderful to see you. Dr. Thorne is expecting Eleanor. We're so ready, Mother said, gripping my arm. They whisked me back for preliminary vitals. Anya chatted about the gift of life while tying a tourniquet around my arm. Your mother says you're eager to help a special couple. Very eager, I lied, watching my blood fill the vial. Actually, could I use the restroom? Nerves. Anya smiled. Just down the hall. Don't be long. I walked calmly until I turned the corner. Then I sprinted. I bypassed the restrooms and shoved through the emergency exit. The alarm was silent. Dr. Thorne likely didn't want loud noises disturbing his clientele. I burst into the damp Seattle afternoon and scrambled into the rideshare I had summoned from my watch.
King County Courthouse, I gasped. Drive fast. I burst into courtroom 4B at 2:25 p.m., my hair frizzed, the white linen dress damp at the hem. Judge Harrison was already speaking. Mother sat at the petitioner's table. Gabriel stood at the respondent's table, looking disheveled but relieved, flanked by a lawyer from legal aid. Your Honor, the lawyer announced, my client has arrived. Mother turned, her face flushing angry red. She's supposed to be at the clinic, she hissed. Interesting, Judge Harrison said dryly. Ms. Vance, are you here of your own free will? Yes, Your Honor, I said, marching down the aisle, and I would like to contest this conservatorship petition immediately. The next hour was a brutal dissection of my life. Mother's lawyer presented Dr. Thorne's manufactured evaluation and my confession of fertility grief recorded during a sedated session. They painted a picture of a woman unhinged by her childless state. But Gabriel and the attorney countered with the folder I'd compiled. They projected the timeline. Forged signatures on power of attorney documents, emails regarding recipient fees, and an affidavit from a former clinic administrator. Your Honor, I said, gripping the podium, I do not have fertility grief. I am a board-certified forensic psychologist. My mother built her identity around her daughter's reproductive capacity. She drugged me to simulate instability and orchestrated a campaign to destroy my credibility when I refused her breeding agenda. Mother stood up, weeping. I just wanted grandchildren. Is that a crime? You have 5 grandchildren, I said, trembling with rage. I pointed to the back of the room where my cousin Chloe Sterling sat, looking ghostly pale. You have them through Chloe. Chloe, who has the bone density of a 60-year-old because of the hyperovulation drugs Dr. Thorne has pumped into her since she was 19. She chose that life, Mother shrieked. Did she? Or did you condition her from age 8 to believe she had no value other than her uterus? The judge slammed his gavel. He reviewed the new evidence, specifically the hair follicle test results proving non-consensual sedation. The petition for conservatorship is denied, Judge Harrison ruled. Given the evidence of medical coercion and fraud, I am issuing an immediate temporary restraining order against Mrs. Vance. I am also referring this evidence to the district attorney regarding Dr. Adrian Thorne. Mother wailed, but it was over. Outside, the adrenaline crashed. I found Chloe in the parking lot, leaning against her minivan. She was pregnant again. The 6th time. How could you? Chloe whispered. She loves us, Ellie. It's holy work. It's commerce, Chloe, I said gently. There is a difference between love and resource extraction. A small face pressed against the minivan window. Emma, Chloe's 7-year-old. Mommy? She asked through the glass. Why is Grandma screaming?
Come with us, I pleaded. Gabriel has room. We can protect you. Chloe shook her head, backing away. I can't. The contract. Dr. Thorne says if I breach, I owe everything back. I can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, I realized aloud. I looked at Emma. But maybe I can protect her. Chloe drove away, her children clustered in the car like shields. That evening, Gabriel and I sat in my loft. I almost believed them, he admitted. The texts they faked, the photos, it was a narrative masterpiece. That's how manipulators work, I said. They take a grain of truth and build a mountain of lies. He stayed with me, validating the gaslighting, making me feel human again. The next few weeks were a blur. I went to real therapy and reclaimed my life. My firm welcomed me back. The investigation into Serenity Oakhaven revealed a pattern of targeting vulnerable women. Dr. Thorne lost his license, and the clinic was shut down. Mother tried to contact me, but every attempt went into the file for the permanent restraining order. Chloe gave birth 6 weeks later. There were complications, placental abruption. She survived, but doctors performed an emergency hysterectomy. I felt a hollow sadness. She was facing the brutal reality of a body destroyed in service of someone else's vision, with no holy work left to offer. 3 months after the hearing, I answered a call from an unknown number. Auntie Ellie, a small voice whispered. It's Emma. Mommy is sick again, and Grandma keeps talking about when I'm older. She says I have good hips like Mommy. Her voice dropped. I don't want to be like Mommy. My chest ached. You don't have to be, Emma. You can be whatever you want. Can I call you sometimes? I'd love that. I became her anchor, the voice telling her she had value beyond biology. 6 months later, at a funeral, I saw Chloe in a wheelchair. She gave me a nearly imperceptible nod. A truce. A year after the escape, a young woman approached me near the university. You're Eleanor Vance, she said. I was supposed to start a cycle at Oakhaven, but I read Gabriel's article. I enrolled in art history instead. I smiled, a bone-deep warmth spreading through me, and handed her my card. If you need help, call me. She left, and I sat on a bench, thinking about how cycles perpetuate until someone jams a wrench in the gears. The breaking hurts, but sometimes the only victory is preventing the next generation from bleeding out on the same altar. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma, now 8, sent from a burner phone. Grandma said I'm going to be a wonderful mother someday. I told her I want to be a forensic psychologist like you. She got really mad. I laughed aloud and typed back, Good for you, kiddo. Stand your ground. The war wasn't over. The boundaries had been set in stone and statute. Somewhere out there, girls were learning that their bodies belonged to them. That had to be enough.